All right. I am really excited for the the honor of meeting with you in person a few weeks back, but we are meeting with Valerie Steensma. Did I
You
say it
got
right?
it. Yeah, you
Oh,
did.
pretty bad with names coming from the
Gold star.
Midwest. She is the owner of My Tailored Move. And if you've ever helped a parent downsize or deal with relocation or transitioning into senior living, we all know how overwhelming this can be, especially if you're a real estate agent or a moving company and you're getting that first call and somebody needs to make a transition and they don't know where to start. And so today, Valerie, I want to really go into sharing how your team helps make this process easier and also what you need to do in order to, if you're in this position, to make this as painless as possible for family. And so thank you for being with us, Valerie. Let's move on. Why don't you tell us your story about how My Taylor Move got started?
Sure. Since I was a kid, I've actually always loved helping people move, as odd as that sounds. I would offer it to friends and they wouldn't believe me until I showed up on moving day. And every job I've ever had had got a cleaner closet and a better database because I just have to tidy and organize as I go. And also at different times in my career, I've worked as a consultant, helping other businesses be more effective. And I just got to the point in my life where I was ready to have my own company. So a bunch of things came together at the same time, and I started my tailored move.
That's awesome. And what inspired you to focus on seniors, downsizing, and relocation? Because I know, organization and decluttering and all those things is part of your skill set and your passion. But let's talk about seniors, downsizing, relo.
Yeah, really what happened, it was at the beginning of the pandemic, and I have a longtime friend whose parents needed help. They've been in the same house for 30 years. Her mom had been diagnosed with dementia, and her dad was in the hospital with COVID, and they had to move right then. And so she brought me in, and we spent a week finding their house again. They had some hoarder tendencies. There was a high density of belongings, and we sorted through all of it and found what could be donated, what needed to be thrown away, what they wanted to keep with them. And that really showed me that families with older parents need help. They actually had a daughter that had the time and the capacity, so we worked together. But families that don't have that or don't choose to use their children, there are just a lot of older folks who need the physical help of making the move happen.
No, that totally makes sense. What would you say is like your mission and core values of the company? I always ask this question to everybody, even like contractors, because just doing good work, I think, is the statement I usually get. But why don't you share a little bit or elaborate more on what your core values and the mission are?
Great. I love it. I'm an organizational development dork, so I have a mission and core values. Our mission is to provide move management services with best team practices, including healthy workloads, positive work culture, exceptional customer service.
I like
And
that.
our Thank you. And our values, integrity, we're trusting and we're trustworthy. We always strive for open and honest communication internally between team members and with the client. We work with transparency, we're reliable, and we're honest. The second one is efficiency. We always strive for efficiency and functionality, both in systems internally and on the job, and we get practical results. And the third is with love. Our work is infused with positivity, warmth, and sincerity. We are engaged, we're flexible, we're open, and we're healthy in our interactions.
I like that. And that's kind of we just met for coffee, and that was the interaction that I got with you, is just being open and caring and being able to have compassion for people is really what drives these types of service offerings. And I think it takes a special skill set, patience, and being able to work through a lot of people's emotional attachment to their personal possessions, the house, all of those things. So why don't you walk us through a step-by-step process of how you help a client from like the first phone call to the move in or the
Sure.
move out day? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I would add too, with that compassion and that love, efficiency is also one of our core values because when you bring them together, then you have an effective contractor, right? It's not just good feelings, right? We need to make it happen too.
Totally.
So the process is pretty standard. I always start with a complimentary consultation. I go to the person's home. We get to know each other. I share with them what I can do. I'm already reducing the stress level in that appointment. And I take a look around, and based on that, I'll build a quote for the job. If they're happy, we'll sign the contract. We'll start scheduling sessions. If they are downsizing, we'll have however many of those sessions I see are necessary, and that's usually one-on-one. That's with me or with a project manager. While they're going through and making the decisions, we try to set them up comfortably. They can stay seated. We just parade things in front of them. They make all the decisions. We'll help them understand how much they can take and keep them on track with that. But we're not deciding if they keep the side table or the dresser, or if they love it. They say, well, I really love this, and I say, well, then let's make sure it fits. And so that's the downsizing process. We also create a floor plan, so we'll make sure that all their favorite pieces are going to fit. And if there's that list of, if I could, I would bring it, we make sure to give them a very clear idea before moving day of what's going to fit in their new home. And then we have packing day. I bring in a team and we get it all done in one day. The next day, the movers come, and I'll oversee the movers so they don't need to deal with that vendor at all. And depending on where we are in the day with the movers, we'll settle them in that day, and we hang up all the pictures. All the boxes are gone and they're just in their new home. Sometimes we come back the second day. We'll put sticky notes on all the cupboards until they know where things are. Silverware, plates. Sometimes that helps with cognitive decline, but also just a new place, and we can take them off whenever they're ready. Finally, we do take pictures of their original home so we can set things up as close to home as it feels. If you're used to having the clock and the television and the family portrait, we're going to set it up that way for you.
I like that. And I know we've talked logistics, and this is good process. I love this. This makes me super excited. How do you help people emotionally get through this process? Because I think they probably have some fear, some FUD, some fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It's stressful uprooting yourself. And are you dealing with some emotional support, a framework? Like, do you provide them anything in terms of like, hey, here's some of the emotions you may feel? How do you kind of navigate that?
That is a big part of the job. And I like that FUD, fear, uncertainty, doubt. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we start simply by listening about where they're at. It makes a big difference if they're choosing this move or if it's required. Maybe there was a fall, maybe there's some medical needs. And so that tells me where they're at, if they've chosen this move or not. And then I do ask them questions like, how are you sleeping? That's a big indicator of how their stress level is. And I found that just listening and validating for them that what they're going through is normal. Moving is always stressful. Most people start to lose sleep. Just reflecting some of the things that I see very commonly. A lot of my clients are facing the reality of physical decline. They're facing the reality of less capacity and the final chapter of their life. And that's a lot. And so just holding space for that and letting them know that what they're feeling is normal goes a long way.
That's amazing. Yeah, we deal with that on the real estate side. Is they're asking us questions, but there's this like connection that happens emotionally where you're trying to be their advisor and their fiduciary, but you're also trying to be like their psychologist and helping them understand that like this isn't easy. This isn't easy for me, but this is really not easy for you. So why don't you give us maybe a success story of a family who didn't know where to start and how you helped them guide through that?
That's a fun question. Actually, I had a client that was not elderly, but her and her partner were going to do an international move. And so they had a 3-bedroom house. And the size that they could take, if you can imagine a doorway and then you lay it down, that space cubed. And if you can't imagine that, it's just a very small space. And that's all they could take. Yeah, so she was entirely overwhelmed. She had the measurements of the space, but she didn't have an imagination of how big that was. She knew it was tiny, and they had a 3-bedroom house. So I went in and we started with some easy, low-hanging fruit organizing in their 3rd bedroom, moved some stuff around, got some stuff out of there they knew they didn't want. And then I taped off in the corner the space that they had for the grazing.
Dimensions. Yeah, that's good.
And the visualization. And then I left for the day. because she had some feelings when she saw the space. But just giving her that visual, and then and already having done a session together where we're just taking off the top, stuff that was really easy to get rid of just to get started. And by the time I came next week, she was ready, and she said to me, how did she put it? Everything I bring will be treasured.
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
didn't do that, right? I just did the practical outlining, visual, and this is how I'm going to work. This is how we're going to start getting through things. And that was a great project, and then she did a grand parade through her entire life as we sorted things for her to decide what to bring. And it turned out to be a really beautiful process for her. And we even had the if it fits pile, and she fit all that stuff the day the international movers came.
I was trying to think of the word, because this is a great success story, but you're almost going through some nostalgia, and like every item you touch is like a flashback to memories and emotional connection and pain and all of these different things. And you're trying to guide them with a process of how to sort these items and be efficient with it. So my next question, this leads into my next question, which is like, what kind of services do you offer? Like packing, coordination, placement. But why don't we start with like what that process is when you're looking at a pile of items in a house? Where do you categorize these things?
Yeah, it's a great question. It is very helpful to start with what their goal is. So if they're moving, it's very clear: 1-bedroom apartment, 525 square feet. And so to start with, or some of my clients aren't moving, what's your goal? I want more spaciousness. One client said beauty and creativity. I was like, great, let's go for that. She had all these artistic interests, but too much stuff. She was too packed in. She couldn't do any of it. And so starting with their goal, and then it's pretty easy for me to pick an easy place to start, just from the experience that I have. So they get a feel for it, and we can make some progress. We can get some traction. And I ask things like, I'll pick something up and I'll say, do you love it? Do you use it? and that's an example of a very concrete way that I'm moving them through the pile. And if there's stuff they have, a lot of times it is a nostalgia trip. It's a wardrobe item a wardrobe category that they wore when they worked, but they haven't worked for 5 years. So we talk a little bit about their work life, and then we move out.
Yeah. And do you deal directly with selling these items or donating them or doing an estate sale? How do you kind of navigate that, like donation / dumpster / what they want to sell?
Yeah. So I tend to connect. I can haul stuff off if it's going for donation or refuse, to the extent that my vehicle fits it. But for the most part, I'll contract with other vendors. So I do have clients that move and then have an estate sale because they just have so much stuff. They're able to do that. And I'll connect them with some estate sale professionals that I respect in town. There are hauling services that will do donations and then recycling and then garbage. So if there's a volume, I can connect them with those vendors. Mostly what I'm doing is the decision making and the packing when there's a move and the unpacking. And I'll coordinate the moving vendor. I'm not myself. I'll hire the truck.
And what is pricing? And you don't have to give us like an exact number, but how does pricing work and how you structure fees?
Yeah, if we're just doing downsizing and organizing, I'll give them an hourly rate, and then they can sort of manage their budget. We'll start with maybe 2 4-hour sessions, and then they can decide after a week if they want to do more. Lots of my clients will keep going after that, but that hourly rate seems to work if they're not moving.
Yeah.
When there's a move, based on that complimentary consultation, I'm going to build them a quote for the whole job: the sorting, the packing, the unpacking, the settling in, as well as the moving company. So they get a sense for the whole before they start.
And what do families often misunderstand about the cost of these services compared to the stress and time served? Because I see the value. Like, I wish I had somebody like yourself just always with me at a listing, because that would eliminate a lot
We
of
could
the
probably arrange that.
But what do you think the perception from the public or families when you do reach out to them? What are you seeing that you have to overcome?
It's a great question. Sometimes there's sticker shock. There is a price that has to be met with my work.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that without fail, every single one of my clients consistently tells me that they are amazed at the value of what they're getting for the money. They can't believe how much I can get done in the amount of time. They didn't know how to start, that sort of stuck feeling that I'm able to move them past. And they really experience the value of the work that's there.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are good at overanalyzing the cost to value ratio, and also looking at it, well, this is only going to take a week. Well, yeah, this is a week of my time and a week of logistics and a week of calling a million vendors and making sure that everything is seamless as possible. Are you going to do it? Right. And I think a lot of people get stuck in that they're not the doer of doing it, and that's where you come into the equation. So
Really, so many of my clients, once we start talking and they're like, I don't know about this. And I say, well, I could do that for you. And they're like, I haven't figured out this. And it's like, oh, let me manage that for you. Or, oh, here's a vendor for you. So I had one potential client call on the phone and we were talking, and I'm just telling her what I do and that we'll have the visit, and I'm explaining some things like I'm talking about with you today. And she was like, oh, wow, you're answering questions I didn't even know I had.
that's where value is.
Yeah.
That's where a professional is.
Yeah.
It's the insights, it's the questions I never thought of, it's the process that I never would get done and it'd be disorganized that people should pay for. Now, when it comes to the hard decision of the person owns a house or apartment, whatever, and they need to make that transition into senior living, how do you have referral partners? Do you have senior living consultants? How do you kind of deal with that question of where do I go next?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are senior placement specialists, or sometimes they're called senior living advisors. And I do have my favorite three in town, and they're all members. I wrote down their association, the Oregon Senior Referral Agency Association. So
I like
they have an association, as do I. I'm a member of the National Association of Senior and Specialty Move Managers. And so that association is ensuring certain professional standards that their three women abide by. And their heart's in the right place. They do amazing work. And so when a family needs to ask the question of where to move, I refer them to one of these professionals that know all the living communities in town.
That's so important. It's so important. We dealt with this with my grandma. I also dealt with this with my mom, or my wife's mom, and the whole transition there. And I can tell you, like, having somebody that's an expert can definitely save some headaches and time.
Yeah.
One of the other questions I have is when you have adult children that know they need to help their parents transition. Let's talk legal for a second, right? Power of attorneys, and dealing with some probate, post passing things. How do you work with the family member, the son, the daughter, plus mom, and making that cohesive? Because I think that's a lot of people that are going to be listening to this are going to ask themselves that question, like, how do we work as a team here so that dynamic stays fluid?
That's a great question. I often can help a family dynamic. People sort of straighten up when a stranger comes in the room. And so I can keep it all nice, right? And professional. I deal with powers of attorney a lot, and they're simply the ones that are signing the contracts and cutting the check. I'm very clear when there's multiple people involved that the resident is my client, that they're the ones making the decisions. I absolutely listen to family when they have concerns or when they have insight into what mom does or does not use or can or cannot do. But then I'm working with mom in that scenario. She's the one that I'm really turning to make sure that her needs are met. Daughter may be organized and efficient and say, let's put the TV over there. But I'm saying, let's work with mom's neck trying to see the TV. So I'm always, the resident is my primary.
I'm going to ask you a couple number one things. What's the one thing you wish every family knew before they started this process? Is there, like, before they called me 5 years ago, I wish I could have said this to them?
Yeah. I would say start small. it's a lot easier to downsize and thin belongings as you go than it is when it's attached to a move. Because when it's attached to a move, the stress is so much higher. That there's usually a timeline, right? So if you're able to move things along, reasonably, and of course, everyone has their preferred density level of belongings in their home. And so I'm not saying it's always easy, but in a perfect world, you relinquish the things once you realize you no longer use them.
Yeah. And it's like with real estate, I'm always talking about estate planning or making quarterly progress or annual progress and trying to figure out how to clean out the house and take care of the deferred maintenance so that it doesn't stack up. I want to list my house in 4 weeks. Oh, you need a new roof. You need to paint the interior. You need to do everything.
It's the same with a house. If you can do your home projects a little bit every year, every quarter, it's a very different process when you list your house.
That's awesome. What's the number one mistake you see families when downsizing or relocating a loved one?
The number one mistake is doing too much, doing it alone or doing too much. I see my clients, I see them get hurt. I see them get injured if they're trying to do it without me. Their adult children, I see them getting injured. I see these medical fallouts and just high stress, even without injury or illness. But it's really common where they get to the point. I had a client who moved here and thought he could unpack himself, and his bad knees just said, stop. And so he was living amongst boxes until he called me in. And so injury and illness is really the big thing that I see when they try and do too much on their own.
I also see that from like the power of attorney or the kids involved, like the loss of time away from work. It's so amazing that like tomorrow or a couple days from now, I have an appointment and the lady's like, can you meet me before the 15th? And I'm like, why? And she's like, well, I got to be back to work. And I'm like, well, what's going on? And she's like, well, I need you to like come out here and take a look at the house and give me a price because I might list it. And my mom's in senior living, and it's those types of situations where like they had to take time out of their day, their week, their work, and someone like yourself inserting you into the process, it actually saves them money from that perspective. So like, what's the one tip that you can immediately make the process easier for both the family and the parent? That's why I brought that example up.
Yeah, it's great because I would like to say that what you're describing is absolutely true. The adult children are either old themselves and it's physically demanding to pack and move, or they're busy. They have kids, they have jobs, and when you hire me, you get to still get to have the relationship with mom or dad. You don't have, or aunt or uncle, cousin, whoever it is. You don't have to also take on this project management role with them that then can cause stress and strain in the relationships. Just be the kid, enjoy their company. You asked a question. Ask it again.
The question really was like, what's the one tip that immediately makes the process easier for that dynamic where you got family members and mom and dad, and they're trying to figure this whole Rubik's Cube out?
Yeah.
I think that's my question.
Call me. That's the first thing. Yeah. That'll reduce your stress. Yeah. And in all fairness too, in that complimentary consultation, I'm trying to give as much free advice as I can. And so whether or not someone contracts with me, it's a helpful thing for them to learn what's possible, what can I do? And along the way, they're getting this idea for selling those things or that idea for downsizing.
I like that. I love that. So in closing here, I want to thank you first for coming on.
My pleasure.
We have an incredible need of, I forget what the statistic was, and this will probably resonate with a lot of people out there, that someone told me every day in America, 10,000 baby boomers retire. And that's 365 days a year times 10,000 people. And it's only going to increase over the next, like, I think it said 15 to 20 years until our next generation kind of figures this out. But I want to really leave by saying, where can people find you?
My website is mytailoredmove.com.
I'll put it below in the comments.
Yep. My phone number is 541-357-9130. And just reach out, and there's a a contact page on my website. You can email me through that.
Yeah, this has been great. Thank you for coming on. So if you're facing downsizing, relocation, senior living transition, please reach out to Valerie and get at least a consultation scheduled. I think that's the most important thing. You're going to be a tool in my arsenal for the next however many years I keep doing this, because we do have this. It's almost an every week, every month predicament of dealing with trying to transition people with compassion and logistical ease. And I think that people like yourself are not easy to find. And I think that's the diamond in the rough of all of this, is that you're doing something that most need and should be reaching out to you to make this process easier. So thank you again, Valerie.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome.